In this module, we'll talk about tracking and status reporting and the cycle that has to occur every week on a project. The process starts with the project manager gathering data about each in-process task. And we're getting the data from the accountable team member. The data the project manager needs is very simple. We want to make this easy so people do it. You need to know how many hours the team member worked on the task in the past week. And you need to know how many hours they estimate it will take them to complete the task. The estimate to complete is really the key number. This won't take the team member more than a minute or so to do for each task. But you need this data to spot problems early. It's critical to get the estimate to complete each week because that is what makes your team member become better estimators. It also helps them anticipate problems that may arise. If each week they are making a new estimate to complete and comparing it to what they originally estimated for the task as far as the hours of work, their skills and their understanding of estimating get better and better very, very quickly because they're practicing it each week. And note that we're not asking for a long status narrative here, simply the two numbers. So people's status report in a voicemail could be, "This is Jim, I worked on task number 7, I did 12 hours this week and I estimate there are 60 hours of work remaining." That's enough, that's it. Could go on a sticky, or we can have fancier reporting. And the only thing you're going to check in and do it in the system is that the combination of the hours worked and the estimated hours remaining exceeds the original estimate. You're probably going to meet with the person anyway to talk with them about what's going on. So having them write a status narrative is never going to be sufficient. And so why bother have them do it at all? You just talk with them. The worst possible way to gather status data and discuss variances is in a group meeting. Yet people do this over and over again. Those meetings are an enormous waste of time, particularly with people on multiple projects. And in many organizations, the project manager goes around the room to find out if there are any problems and then discusses what to do about them, taking everybody's time, whether they know about the task or not. A better process is to have people report their time and their estimate to complete on Friday afternoon, say. Then the PM starts Monday morning, taking that data, updating the schedule in 10 minutes, and finding out where the problems are. It's far better for the project manager to have individual discussions with the people whose tasks show variances than to make everybody on the project team sit in the room and listen to those stultifying discussions. This is not to say that every team member on the project shouldn't know how things are going. They should. But we can accomplish that very quickly by sending them a copy of a tracking report, the tracking can. And that shows them the comparison between the planned duration of every task and the actual duration that's forecast. So it lets them know what's happening on their current and future assignments without taking hours of people's time in a meeting. Then, you use the software to track project progress and create your status report for the sponsor. As a last step in the cycle, you're going to model different corrective actions using the same techniques we talked about with the critical path a couple of modules back. You'll model options about how to fix the problem. So you go into your status report not only with the data on what's happening, but how you're going to fix any problems that exist. That's the cycle. In project management and in your software, you'll save the baseline as soon as the sponsor approves the schedule and budget. That baseline version of your plan is stored like a Polaroid picture in your project file. And all tracking and project management is on the basis of comparing the current actual schedule with that static baseline plan. That's how we identify variances. So once you've entered the data in the software, including the estimates to complete. The software makes a forecast of the completion date and the project's budget, and gives you variances on every one of your tasks. But remember here, the variances we're talking about are forecasted variances based on an estimate to complete. They're not spilt milk, something that can't be fixed. Receiving those estimates to complete allows you to identify problems early. As an example, Pat may be working on task 37, which was originally budgeted for 80 hours worth of work and a month-long duration. The end of the first week of the assignment, Pat reports completing 40 hours worth of work and gives you an estimate to complete that it will take another 100 hours of work to finish the task. Now, this task is not late, nor is it finished. But the team member is estimating, the estimate to complete is a problem, and the 100 hours on top of what's been done is 20 hours more than the baseline plan. So the project manager is going to report on that task, that task 37 will finish a week and a half later than planned if we don't do anything. We're forecasting what will happen from the problem and identifying the sponsor, and then we can talk about the corrective action. This approach to status reporting is going to be new for a lot of executives. I mean, it's the best practice in project management, but a lot of executives are accustomed to hearing about bad news and variances when it's too late, when it is spilled milk. You need to carefully explain what you're doing, particularly in the beginning, is to say, this task is going to finish late if we don't do anything. We want to avoid that. So here is the corrective action I'm going to suggest. You have to look at your critical path and identify if task 37 has slack. If it has enough slack to cover the week and a half overrun, we don't have to solve that problem, do we? So we don't need to solve every variance, which project managers who don't have these tools think they do. Now we're going to note that task and we're going to watch it, but if we have sufficient slack to absorb the overrun, then we tell the sponsor that and let the slack solve the problem for us. So your status report provides the sponsor with forecasted variances, and then you present corrective action to those variances that we have to solve. And when the sponsor approves those corrective actions, then you and the team implement them. An important part of the weekly status cycle is handling change requests that alter deliverables, the duration, or the budget. Now, the PM's role is central to good change control, and it follows the change control procedure that was approved in the charter way back when. Usually the PM analyzes the impact of any submitted change and then writes up a summary report with a recommendation to approve or reject the change request. That goes to the sponsor for review and the sponsor's decision making. Let's now look at our supply room project again and see the project manager's modeling of a change request. The PM received a change request for additional deliverables on task number 16. PM talked to the involved team member. They agreed on an estimate of how much additional work would be required. Then the PM entered that additional work to task 10, and let the software calculate the impact on the project completion date and the overall cost of the project. The PM would take that data from the software and write it into a change request form like you see on your screen. You have one in your template too, and we send that to the project sponsor. All right, that handles the change request, and we're going to save that version of the project file until the sponsor makes a decision about whether to approve it or not. Our next step is to gather the status data from the team on our supply room project and enter it into Microsoft Project. You'll learn how to do this in the software movie that's next. But let's take a look at what the final product's going to look like as we have been. And notice the updated Gantt chart is quite different. It's the tracking Gantt. Each task now has two bars in this tracking view. The gray bar is the baseline start and finish. The red or blue bar is the current actual schedule. Notice the overrun on task 4. The delay on task 4 has pushed that project's finish out a week later than the baseline. What's most powerful is that notice how that one variance has rippled through the entire project. This makes this dynamic schedule very, very valuable because you put a little bit of data in and you see the consequence of your whole project. You'd record all of that status information, and if you had multiple tasks, you would record all of that data on the status tab of your template, and then use that to craft your status report and develop your corrective action plan. You learn how to do all this in the software movie that's coming, and then you can apply it to your assignment. In summary, we've covered a lot in this module, but the status cycle we've talked about may be very different from what you're used to, but it represents the best practices in project management. And the cycle starts by receiving status reports from the project team, which contain information on how many hours, not days, how many hours they've worked on each of their tasks in the past week, and an estimate to complete for each of those tasks, both in hours format. Then you use the software to identify variances, and then use the software again to model your solutions using the critical path that we talked about earlier. You're going to present the status report to the sponsor with the problems that are forecasted if we don't do anything about it, the solutions you've modeled in the software, and secure the sponsor's approval to begin the problem solving. That's the status reporting cycle that will build your credibility and show people that you're in control of what's happening on your projects. Thanks for working with me on this.